Welcome back to the Clean Eating Kid tip for week 1. And I want to talk to you guys about one of the most crucial steps when it comes to bringing your kid on the clean eating train. And that is really to figure out what is their why, right? Why do we have, I gotta back up. Why do we want them to adopt this way of eating? Why is that important? Because when our why as a caregiver, as a parent, is likely very different than the why of our children. If you listened to the welcome video, you learned about my son's story with his sensory condition. My why for helping him heal, for adopting this way of anti-inflammatory eating, was many, many reasons. So we could stop taking all this crazy medication, stop having to travel from doctor to doctor and expert to expert without getting solid answers, so that we could walk out of the door in the mornings without spending, I kid you not, 20 minutes trying to get on a pair of socks because the feeling is so uncomfortable on his toes, right? So that he could do well in school, so he could be focused and be able to maneuver through transitions and absorb content without having that kind of the ADD attention deficit going on. So those are my whys. What was my son's why for agreeing to try this way of eating? I promise you, it wasn't to do better at school, and it wasn't so that we could get out the door more easily. Definitely not. His why is because he wanted to play at recess. And having to put on all those layers of clothes, like I talked about in the welcome video, he had a hard time putting on multiple layers of clothes to go out at recess in the wintertime. It actually made it so that he didn't have access to recess. He couldn't get dressed in time. So one of his big whys for agreeing to adopt this way of eating was because he wanted to be able to feel good in his skin. He didn't want to feel yucky. He didn't want his skin to feel uncomfortable, so that he could put on his snow clothes and go play and enjoy recess, so that he could put on his snow clothes and go skiing with all of his buddies in the wintertime and on the weekends. That was his why. I've worked with a number of other children and as VIP clients and their families. And when I have done this, right, I've worked with children who actually, one child in particular had an eating disorder, and his parents were very, very worried about him. And that is why they brought me in to work with the child. But the child, the reason he had an eating disorder is because he had a belief that he had to eat a certain way or his body had to look a certain way for him to be a good athlete. This boy was just barely in middle school, and he was really into sports. He really, really cared about being a good athlete. And so his why for agreeing to try this way of eating, do that little 2-week science experiment, was to see if his body would actually become a better athlete, if he would become a better athlete by swapping out the inflammation for foods that don't inflame, right, but taste really good. So we have to identify, and my daughter, who was much younger, she's kind of always eaten this way, but as she got older and we were explaining why we eat this way, her reason for wanting to maintain it is because she loved to run really fast. Like when she was 2 or 3, she just wanted to grow big and have big muscles and run fast and jump high and be like Superwoman, right? Be like all those superhero characters. That was her why. Like it just was a fun game. It's so exciting to grow up and be big. I've worked with high school students and actually senior boys. Some of my past students asked me if I would come in and meet with them once a week and talk to them about how to get inflammation out, because they were experiencing a ton of anxiety. And if you listen to the stickman figure and learned how inflammation affects us in more ways than we realize, it affects us mentally and emotionally a ton. So chronic anxiety, chronic depression, those are really, really big when it comes to inflammation. And they were having a lot of anxiety about what to do after high school, if they were going to do college, getting all of their college essays done, all of that. And they also cared about athletics. Some of them were way more into the athletics, but they actually wanted to feel less anxious. So they adopted this way of eating, did this 9-week challenge with me, and felt completely new. My point is that as a caregiver, like I said, our why for wanting our kids to adopt this way of eating is totally different than their why. We have to put our why aside. We can acknowledge it. This is why you're here. You're showing up. You're an incredible mom, an incredible dad or grandparent. So congratulations. But we really have to put our why aside and have these conversations with our children to figure out, what is it that's bugging them? Maybe their tummy hurts and they don't want their tummy to hurt anymore. Maybe they're little, and I've worked with kids who have been really constipated and it's hard. They want to potty train these kids. Maybe this one girl in particular was a little behind in potty training. She was like 3 or 4 and trying to be more independent using the bathroom, but she had been having a really hard time for almost 2 years because she had chronic constipation. And so she would sit in these public restrooms for a very long time trying to go to the bathroom when she felt like she needed to, which felt very embarrassing, right? And so having that constipation and kind of lack of security when it came to going to the bathroom, that was her why to follow this way of eating. So I think you get the point here. The goal for you this week is to have a conversation with your child and help them figure out, maybe you already have a sense, if you put yourself into their shoes, how they are feeling. Think about when you were a kid. What's the difficult part of the symptom they're experiencing? Maybe they get made fun at school. Maybe kids don't understand them. Maybe they feel really, really different because they, Tosh experienced that because he felt things on his skin differently and he just wanted to feel normal again. So take some time, have a conversation with your child, and let them know that you are going to help them solve this problem. You are going to help them get rid of the symptom that's stopping them from living the day-to-day life that they desire, that they deserve, that they dream of. And that we're going to do it by eating lots of really yummy food, like cakes and cupcakes, right? But we're just going to make sure that they have ingredients that don't cause toxins and chemicals and inflammation in the body. Okay, that is your homework. Have that conversation and report back in the Facebook group. I would love to hear what your child's why is. It will really determine the way that you continue to communicate with your child.